Well, the thing I want to bring up next is vacationing. So,
Oh God.
What does that have to do with anything?
so Dave and Britt, as VCs, do you intend to do any work this summer?
I'm closing 2 deals right now.
Nice. Greetings, friends. Welcome to another week of More or Less. What is cooking?
4th of July week. So hot dogs? Oh, good. Did you like that answer? Sorry, that was too punny.
Oh, like literally cooking. Oh, yeah.
I mean,
well, it's funny you bring it up because we have dubbed this week our summer adventure preview of which will encompass all summer adventures from billionaire moguling in vests to whatever my husband is planning to do next week and many, many more. So I think adventure's in the air. What about you guys?
Yeah, I think so too. And I thought you were going to actually take that a different way, Jess, which is what are all of the Silicon Valley people actually doing this summer? How do they spend their adventures? That's like more of the information weekend edition type of topic.
Guys,
but
weekend is just crushing it.
We'll do it all.
We can do that. I have a pet hobby in chronicling the ridiculous adventures of tech people, often that I have to partake in myself.
Yeah,
so.
it's like, let's be honest, this is a classic pot kettle situation, Jessica.
that I have to partake in. Oh, it's probably so hard to ride on all
Guys,
these fancy
I'm in full-on
boats.
tennis training. Today, I'm like, I need more side-to-side Bosu ball also Wimbledon just started. And I must say, all the major tennis tournaments have excellent social media games. And I strongly suggest, if you follow the sport of tennis, to follow all the tournaments. It feels like in the last year, they just really got what the social media wants, the behind the scenes. Like at Wimbledon, I saw something yesterday on Instagram and they're just like going through the fashion, which is great. Like they're just like going up to people and talking about their awesome outfits. Now, they also have amazing content from the players, and like the players are filming all of their practices, like seem to be having really fun. But it has jumped out at me as a notable step
I think this
up.
is one of the unintended consequences of the rise of pickleball, which is the most ridiculous sport, this is kind of what happens. It's like you get like a snowboarding and then skiing gets really good because you're like, fuck this. This is actually a stupid sport, but like, let's actually like reinvest and like up the game, right, of the core sport. I'm saying pickleball, it's like pickleball is a ridiculous sport with the stupid dinking. It's like the least, have you ever watched pickleball on TV? It's like professional pickleball is the dumbest looking sport ever. Right, when you watch it, because you have like it's just a ridiculous, but it makes tennis be like, fuck this, we're gonna like go for it.
The only cool pickleball thing that I've seen is John McEnroe and Andre Agassi playing pickleball. That was pretty awesome.
I don't think I need to see that. I think that would make me upset, but I don't know.
Is there an opportunity to create the pickleball of other sports that need like a boost?
So you have to find a sport and then find a stupid version of it that old people can play,
or young people.
Like, could soccer have a pickleball little brother?
That's actually not the dumbest idea I've ever heard.
I don't know. Is it like T-ball for baseball?
Well, there is one of Jessica's engineers at the information was like an international like court soccer player, where it's like soccer with a mini field. I think there are versions of it, but you're right. Maybe you could have like, the question is, what will old people play? Right. I think that's the core question you have to answer.
Yeah, can't be too much movement. So it has to be smaller.
It needs to be smaller. It needs to be like less energy. And it needs to be the type of thing you can play in 10 minutes per game with a variety of skill levels in like reasonably even form.
And you need great outfits. I mean, there's a lot of things you need. I don't think objectively pickleball has peaked, and I would never say that. But it is less buzzy than it was. Don't you think we're hearing less about it?
Well, they ran out. All of the billionaires and rich people bought pickleball teams in the last 2 years because they like the idea of owning professional sports teams because they're incredible tax hacks to them. but they can't afford real sports teams, so they buy pickleball teams.
Guess it depends on who you are, Sam.
Well, like I'm just saying, like, you know, this is like the thing everyone in New York did is you bought a pickleball team because you couldn't afford a real sports team, but like you like the economics of owning a sports team. But like once you've sold all the pickleball teams, you're kind of done, right?
Well, then we get to padel.
But padel is different because padel is actually the high end of tennis. Padel is like tennis for billionaires. Tennis is like for millionaires, and pickleball is for old people.
Wait, what is padel though?
Padel also just seems like way too complicated. It's like, it looks like a squash court.
Well, that's why it's for billionaires, because it requires more infrastructure.
It requires a lot of infrastructure.
It's like a ridiculous amount of infrastructure. Nobody's going to play this.
Pickleball meets squash meets tennis.
You know what it is? It is basically the polo of tennis. It's like if you needed a polo version of tennis that was more exclusive, you'd play
ridiculous.
Padel.
I thought racquetball was that.
No, racquetball is for like East Coast prep schools and investment bankers.
Sam's sort of encyclopedia of racket sports is really quite useful. And
I'm really into whacking balls. That's like what it comes down to. And so I know a lot about whacking balls.
I am not.
You're not a ball whacker?
No, I'm not.
I keep Googling whacking balls, and it's pretty bad.
Oh, God. Okay. So,
although I do think I can probably crush you at tennis, Sam.
Wow.
Really?
That's fighting words.
Is this a more or less challenge? Can we have a doubles match, you guys?
What has been going on over at the Belvedere Yacht Club or wherever you guys are?
Dave, I'm going to be willing to put money on this one with you. That's going to be
fun.
All
right, let's do it. Let's do it.
I'd put some money on it too. I'm Sam.
I'm going to put money on Sam. No offense, Dave. I love you.
You're in trouble, Brett.
Dave is taller. I'd wager I'm more fit. But Dave is taller, and Dave, you've got a lot fitter. He's gotten a lot fitter.
He's got a good swing.
The thing for me is I played tennis too long. Like I played tennis my whole life. And I still think I'm as good as I was when I was 18. And then I get angry at myself.
Yeah, I mean, that's my same problem. I was way better when I was 18. And I don't know if I'll ever be back there, but we'll see.
We can play. We can play if that's how it's going to be.
We are going to set this. We may even bring, I mean, we'll have to wait until August, but it's going to go down in Bolinas at the tennis barn.
Good.
I'm here for it. I'll make the swag. I'm ready.
I'm here for it.
Team Dave.
Let's go.
Team more, team less.
I thought you were team
Wait,
Britt.
what are you talking about, Britt? You just like switched teams.
No,
I need Jess on my team.
I'm not going to be on your
something.
team, but I'm going to make swag for you, for anyone that wants to join your team.
Oh, we'd crush them in doubles, Dave. No question.
All right. This is the challenge.
Speaking of tennis, I have a funny story. It involves Sun Valley and playing tennis next to Bill Gates. Have I told this story on the pod before?
I don't think so.
No. Go for it.
So I went to Sun Valley for many, many years as a journalist, and I needed to get my exercise in. I also need to find ways to be close to the attendees and not like penned up, nowhere near them. Turned out tennis courts, anyone could book. So Amir Afradi and I, of The Information, decided we were going to play as much tennis as we possibly could book. And we would run into all these interesting people and say hello and catch up. And it actually worked pretty well. But I will never forget because Bill Gates played maybe for like 2 hours, just hitting with a pro, and did not stop talking the whole time.
He sounds like our son.
It sounds exactly like our son.
What is he talking about? Like the weather,
like,
the news?
Believe me, it wasn't that interesting. I was hoping it'd be more interesting. But like everything. I mean, he was talking about science. He was talking about Sun Valley. He was talking about he was just talking. And I think it is a good example of witnessing some of these business leaders out in the wild. And I think about it often because it's like hard. He was like, and he's a solid tennis player. Like he was really playing tennis. And yeah, he was giving it his all and lecturing his tennis pro about something or other. So
maybe his tennis pro is the only one that, he can confide in because he's got, all these direct report, these people work for
Except
him.
for, of course, the thing, that obvious thing, which is whenever you're in public at tennis courts, just assume Jessica Lesson's in the next court over taking notes.
Well, I am giving away my playbook now because it's no longer my playbook. If it were, I wouldn't be giving it away.
Yeah, you're burning that one. But the interesting thing for me is I feel like there's two types of people. There are people who want to talk, and then people who do not want to talk. When I'm hitting with a tennis pro, I'm very happy for silence, except for the occasional pointer. But there is a different personality that wants to talk about their day.
Not me.
Very different. I was trying to get us back to technology and media. You got us back to you and your
Fine, let's go back. Jess, give us a Sun Valley preview. That's the big thing.
Sun Valley starts the Tuesday after the 4th of July. Mark your calendars. Everyone always asks me.
Is it still relevant? Does anyone care? This feels like an old story.
That's what I was going to say. Like, who cares?
I agree with you and I disagree with you, right? So I think it is interesting. Like, the collection of people who go to this event is always, it's incredible, but you have to look at the newbies who come on, right? You can't just look at like the stalwarts. So some of my favorite newbies from who I understand to be going this year, Peter Attia, who is an author, longevity doctor, charges $1 gazillion for him to keep you alive.
You should respect that. It's a high price subscription.
I do respect a high price subscription.
Yeah, but like, what does he have anything to do with anything going on at Sil Valley?
Everyone there are his patients. Yeah.
Well, I know, but like that has nothing to do with the point of Sun Valley.
Well, I bet there's a token conversation on longevity. I mean, find me a tech conference that doesn't have a token conversation on longevity.
Okay, fine. Fair.
Josh Kushner, first time attendee on the list. Lots of entrepreneurs. Alexander Wang of Scale, big story about him in the information. Sam Altman, per usual. So actually, there wasn't, like, Peter was one of the only ones who really struck me as that interesting and new on the list. But I don't know, guys. I think this whole year, all of Sun Valley is going to be dominated by the presidential brouhaha.
It's got to be.
And because it's a huge, huge deal. And we haven't talked much on this pod because there isn't much to say about the attempted sale of Paramount. But it's been on again, off again for like 12 weeks. And after being off, is now on again. So there'll be that kind of scuttlebutt. But the big problem...
So the only headline I saw with that is something about how, like, this is why family-owned businesses are bad. What is going on with the sale of Paramount?
Well, I don't think Sherry can really decide what she actually wants to do.
Aren't there like pieces of it that have already transacted and then more of it needs to transact? Or I sort of don't understand what's going on.
Over the years, there have been various things, but there have been various competing offers to own the whole thing. Skydance seems to be the one that's going to get the deal done. But
what is Skydance?
Skydance is an entertainment company.
Is it Sky out of the UK? No,
that's different. That's
Rupee. That's Rupert.
Skydance spends Larry Ellison's money, as far as I understand.
Yes, that's what it does. Thank you, Dave.
I see.
So the bigger question, though, which directly ties into politics, is just like, will M&A get done?
Well, but wait, one other thing that I thought was amusing is that the holding company's name of Paramount is National Amusements. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
I just think that's the best name ever.
Well, this is a very Waystar Royco situation. Like,
yeah.
Waystar it's like literally straight out. They're just like replaying old seasons of Succession. Like, literally, they're like, they're using it as a playbook.
Show.
Absolutely. It's a shame it's over.
That was a happier era of making fun of media companies and M&A. My thing is, how is any M&A going to get done? No M&A is going to get done right now.
That's what I just said. That's what I just said.
So what is the point of an investment bank hosting a high-priced conference?
Yeah.
Power, Sam, power.
Yeah, Sam, it's just relationships and power, the same old shit.
So fun facts, and by the time this podcast is out, the information will have a great story on all of this. But I think one of the things people miss about Sun Valley is how deeply hierarchical and kind of, I don't want to say structured it all is, right? You are supposed to come from Tuesday through Sunday, which is a long time. You're a busy founder, think you'll come in Wednesday because you got a team product meeting on Tuesday. No.
No, you do not do that. Yeah.
You do not do, but also no one tells you that you don't do that until you show up Wednesday and everyone looks at you like, where have you been, dude? And then come next year, you don't get the invite. So I think there is a lot, I mean, this is Waystar Royco. There's a little like cloak and dagger like pomp to it all. At the same time, I think it is really, I will say, and in my very limited interactions with them over the years, I think the Allen folks are like genuine relationship people, right? They really value having these long-term relationships. It's not all about what deal is going to close in the next week. They really value the relationship and being kept in the loop.
Well, that is true, Jess, but I think it's both, right? They do value the long-term relationships, but it's very much a eat what you kill operation. And so the companies, like you're pointing out, that show up at any of the conferences very much are the companies in play on the chessboard right now. If you're not in play, you're not there. And that's how it goes.
It's a privately held investment bank, right?
Yes.
And like, how big is it? It's not that big.
I don't think it's that big.
And like, it's owned by what's the family that owns it?
The Allen
Is it
family.
still the Allen family?
Yeah.
And the co.
Who's the and co?
That's my question.
Who's the
too.
and co? Is it like, do they have a monkey?
No, there's people like...
They've adopted some others into the family.
No, they have a Costco bear, Sam.
Oh, I love the Costco bear. Yeah, it's just interesting. I mean, I think this is kind of like that's the nice part about being a privately held thing, right? Is like, I have no idea who knows what their revenues look like and what they look like in the league tables. But like, look, if you're a family owned business, you can take a super long view. It doesn't matter if you make a ton of money or not in a given year. And maybe that's why the convening power and the power thing matters, is because like in a lot of ways, it's more social. I mean, investment banks don't really do anything, right? Like it's just relationship banking. Right. Yeah. And so it's just a very weird type of entity. And if you're going to take a long-term view, I can see why you invest a lot in the event.
Yeah, I think that's what they do.
Do you think there's opportunity to upend Allen and Co.'s Sun Valley event?
People have tried.
I think it just moves in a different direction, right? Like, I don't think
it's just tradition at this point, it feels like.
The actual convening power in and of itself. And I think the people who are invited are always going to show up and always let you know that they were invited.
But it really is kind of like the Met Gala of like tech shit, because like it doesn't really, like, all these people who need to do deals with each other already know each other, right? Like it's not like you're going to make, I really doubt anyone's there being like, oh shit, I really want to talk to X and this is my only opportunity to meet them, right? Like that's just not how the world works in 2024. That's how it worked in 1980. And so it is just a really interesting thing, because I feel like, I don't know. What do you think of this analogy? To me, it just feels exactly like a week-long Met Gala, right? In terms of it being like not actually relevant to anything, but having cultural power.
I know a lot of people who would say they get a lot of business done at it. And I think for very senior people where, you know, your people are talking to their people all year long, but you've got to connect at a high level twice a year, once a year, and those meetings are big deals. I think that's valuable. I also think that, you know, the institutional investor side is a huge part of this too. So it's not just about the M&A, but it's Allen putting their investor clients in front of their sort of corporate clients.
Yeah, it's getting the T rows and the big holders primed for the post-IPO.
So I actually have my attitude on the importance of the meetings has changed over the years, because I think a lot of people use it for very, very important meetings.
Jess, do you think that this year, given all that's going on in the world, people will actually talk about something that's not tech? And like, you have all these powerful people together that could change the trajectory of, I don't know, like the election maybe, or, you know, what's happening with AI, good or bad. You know, are there discussions on these topics with action involved, or is it just like fodder?
So the content itself, so they have like formal sessions, again, but in seat at 8 a.m. or you get a demerit. Also very, very cold air-conditioned room, which actually becomes a huge topic of conversation because people are freezing the whole time. Doesn't make any sense.
Oh, that's how you keep people awake.
Totally.
Yeah, you do. You make them network although there's very little drinking, again, because at meals, I think afterwards there's more. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a couple university presidents on the list. So that's certainly notable from the perspective of like what's going on in higher education. I can tell you
what universities, Jess?
I do not have it memorized, even though I should. No, I shouldn't. Let's see. We have president of the University of Florida.
Oh, that guy's good.
And University of Chicago.
Oh, those are good ones.
Solid.
They invited the good university president.
What makes them good, Sam?
Chicago's definitely the stalwart.
Well, the University of Florida guy did a great job on campus with all the woke bullshit and the encampments. And Chicago obviously had the Chicago principles. They've had some challenges, but I think overall have been reasonably good. So it's good. That's good signaling they have those two. The interesting thing for me is I actually kind of agree. I don't think that people will do their investor meetings. And then the actual topics of conversation has just got to be the presidency, which is an interesting thing because like Jess and I don't go to Allen & Co. And given this podcast, we'll probably never be invited. At least I won't be, but maybe Jess will be. But we go to a few other things which are like it, but maybe like a little bit less well known or prestigious, or at least publicly. And even a year ago, the conversation was all about the election and Biden's age at those types of things, and a bunch of billionaires being really pissed and being like, "How can you run Biden?" And like, I'm curious. I feel like this will be the come home to roost. Right? Like almost a year ago, we were at a cabal like this. And
I'm remembering like a huge leader in Hollywood like stood up in the back and was basically like how dare loudly. You guys?
Yeah. And like, I think that that's an interesting, like, in some ways, if it's a lot of the same people. And so I assume that they're going to get up and have similar but more angry conversations. Right. But the question is, it's like old man shouts at the wind. Like, I think this is one area where I'm not sure that, very powerful people really are going to have a direct say, which is like in some ways even crazier.
Well, and I don't want us to, I mean, obviously this is an incredible moment in American history and politics. And I don't think any of us are sort of like experts in predicting, but among the amazing, like really great news coverage I've been reading across the board of this moment, like there's a lot of focus on polls and there's a lot of focus on donors. So I think those are the two levers.
But this is exactly like in some ways, I think what's interesting is I spent a lot of time in the last year on the university problems. And this is just like the university problems on steroids. It's kind of the same thing. Like you have the wrong person going into a leadership position or setting things up. All the donors are like pretty aligned that this is a terrible fucking idea, right? Just as they were like, at Harvard, et cetera. You have a bunch of polling showing it's horrible shit, right? But then the question of like the gears of change, like how that actually affects, it's like the actual governance structures are so far removed from what these people actually have leverage over. So it's a very weird situation where like you have a bunch of people who are used to having a lot of power over a lot of what's going on and have a huge stake in it. Like it really matters to a lot of these businesses who's in the White House, a lot. But it is just like, what are you going to do about it, right? Like there's very little, it's very hard to understand. It's I don't know. So I do wonder, like to me, in some ways, I wondered if a lot of the university stuff we saw last year, it was a dress rehearsal for this and like what's going to play out here. And I wonder if it plays out any differently.
Yeah. I think it's a good analogy.
Soon enough, we'll have White House staffers encamping in the Rose Garden.
But Peter Attia is going, who's focused on longevity. So if he can get to Biden, then maybe we can turn this ship around.
It's a good joke, Brett. I like how you're connecting the dots here.
What hearing about the Peter Attia thing is making me think about is that I remember, Brett, you and I went to a like family office event in San Francisco. It must have been 10 years ago. And Peter Attia was the key speaker.
Wow.
It's like then he only charged $50,000 a year.
Yeah. So has this guy just been like going from like family office to family office event and he's finally achieved the pinnacle?
Well, I did get 3 pitches in the last week from longevity-focused startups, and 2 of the 3 mentioned that they have like pulled from strains of Peter Attia's work to sort of encapsulate some of their protocols that they're doing now. And I'm like, when did this guy become the god of longevity?
It's the book.
I just think he's been doing it for as long. I think that's what it comes down to is he just like has been doing it the longest. And frankly, respect to him for hustling from small group to small group. He's like a church pastor that's just kept on going.
He also has a podcast.
He's just going to end up being an advisor to all of these companies. Like that's how you monetize a podcast, right? Like if you're Peter Attia, you're like, I am the angel. You must give the Peter Attia 5% of all your company if you're going to be a longevity company. He's going to do YC Longevity.
Didn't they name their follow-on fund no, it was like YC. It wasn't longevity, but it was like
continuation, probably.
Continuation, yeah.
But that's just because that's what you call them. That's like that's what a continuation fund is.
Britt, okay, so like stay tuned for Sun Valley. I'm happy to talk next week about everything that happened if people are interested. I think it's an interesting moment, and I think there'll be some headlines out of it.
What other cabals are there? Let's talk about non-cabals.
What is a non-cabal? Like people gathering places?
Well, the thing I want to bring up next is vacationing. So, Yoni.
Oh, God.
What does that have to do with anything?
You just said Yoni and vacationing in one sentence. I can't wait to see where this goes.
There's someone on our team at Slow Ventures named Yoni.
Oh,
Yoni's
okay.
great. And Yoni has gone, which I really appreciate, deep into the Sam Lesson screenshot essay camp and trying to like effectively clickbait people on topics. And he did a screenshot essay just today about how effectively it's a good thing that all the VCs stop working all summer. And it's like total clickbait. But then it kind of points out the fact, he's like, I'm just like, as soon as I can afford to, I'm just going to like go to Europe all summer. And it's good that VCs do no work all summer. So Dave and Britt, as VCs, do you intend to do any work this summer?
I'm closing 2 deals right now.
Nice.
Just was on the call with the founder today, negotiating term sheet. So I'm doing work.
Do you guys do your own diligence?
Yes.
Of course.
Who else would do it for us?
No, but like you do it. Like your lawyers don't do it.
No.
You can't trust lawyers with diligence.
Okay.
I mean, they diligence like the cap tables and stuff, but most of the companies...
Yeah, I guess, Jess, it depends on what you mean by diligence. Which type of diligence?
Like looking through documents of financial records and legal stuff and all that.
Okay,
do you do that?
Lawyers do some of that. Yeah. But there's a different type of diligence, which is like founder, idea, company, like that's...
No, that's not diligence. That's like...
Yes, it is.
That's like conviction on the thesis. Like the diligence
calling,
is like...
customer, you have to call their partners' customers, getting back channel, like all that.
Talk to their other investors, these type of things.
I'm sure that our audience doesn't have this, and Dave and Britt, you might not either. But the context is I'm really enjoying... Jessica's in the middle of negotiating her first real venture deal that she's doing herself.
Dave and Britt know this. They're totally clued in.
The audience might not know it, but it has been really fun to watch her do this. Because she's, as with most things, she's brilliant in so many ways and knows so much about so much. But like...
Palace intrigue.
She's like, do you know about this? I'm like, yeah, that's like how these things happen. And it's great. I think one thing she has said to me, I'll let her riff on this, but in her own words, is like when she started the information, how it changed how she thought about startups so much. Because all of a sudden there were all these things where she thought that like founders were like snowing her, lying to her when they were like, we don't know what we're doing next quarter. Now she's like, oh yeah, you really don't know what you're doing next quarter. And like, this is the same thing. It's been funny to watch her repeat this, like writing a check out of the information for something she's investing in, where she's like, wait, this is how investments happen? Like, these are the terms? It's great.
Sam, Britt and I have gone through the same thing with starting offline because Britt wasn't doing venture before this.
Yeah. And I think what were my biggest aha
moments? You've said this to me many times, Britt.
I did. I know, but I'm trying to think back because it was like 5 years ago. There are a lot of acronyms that venture capitalists know and founders don't know.
Like what?
Like TVPI. Founders don't necessarily think about those sort of acronyms. And so just learning the language.
Founders don't give a shit about your DPI.
I'm just saying, like,
they
all
should.
Of the different acronyms.
Why should they care? That's not their problem. That's your problem.
Well, I do think that understanding the stack of capital that you exist inside of is valuable.
I think the other thing that was like an aha for me is there are some topics like, should you recycle or not recycle? Or like, how much should you recycle? And what % follow on should you have versus initial check? Like, everyone does it differently and no one actually, there's like no tried and tested way for a lot of these things. It's like each fund has a different strategy. And anyway, I just like, there is a lot of those aha moments for me where I was like, wow, VCs don't even really know what they're doing either.
What's your take on recycling?
I believe you should recycle. I think that's how you actually preserve a lot of follow-on capital so that you can write more sort of initial checks.
Interesting.
Just to everyone who works at the information who's listening to this, we've always done some venture investing. So our strategy isn't changing. And we've always invested in cool media companies. But there are more opportunities that are coming our way, and some of them are bigger. And I am getting more involved in understanding them and learning a lot. But I just felt I had to make that very clear that we have not pivoted our strategy. We have 6. I mean, I ran an accelerator. We have 6 portfolio companies in the information already. So
a lot of which have been followed on significantly by big media companies.
Yeah.
So do you have a separate fund within the information that's investing in these companies then? Or is this a separate entity?
It's these aren't gobs of, we're experimenting. And I think
founders shouldn't be pitching you for a check right now.
I love talking to founders, but I think it's usually we can talk about a lot of different things, not just checks, because, it goes back to what to build in media, the episode that we did, which we got some great thoughts on. So, but it is fun to learn new relevant skills. And Sam's right. People, if I'm doing any kind of talk, the first question I usually get is, has being a founder changed how you think about covering companies? So It's a good one. But Sam, were you going to talk about vacationing?
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to point out Yoni's thing about how everyone goes to Europe now, apparently, and no one does any work in the summer. And somehow that's good. That's all I wanted to say about vacationing.
This is old news. This is yesterday's news.
Why does everyone go to Europe?
That I actually don't understand, because
guys, Europe is amazing. I will not be one of these people.
Montana is amazing too. Come on.
Europe's too hot, you guys. I can't go there in the summer. And also because everyone goes there, the prices are higher. All of Europe goes on vacation in August too. So then it's even more crowded.
Oh, and they just have the worst internet laws. Like, I don't want to support that shit.
Okay, so it's a principled stance, but it's not because Europe isn't great.
Wait, Sam, did you just write a screenshot essay on Europe? Did I see that? I haven't read it yet.
I did, and hilariously, it got very widely picked up, and including someone sent a photo.
What's your new point?
Some big newsletter picked it up and clipped it. Morning Soup, Daily Brew. Daily Brew, is that a thing?
Morning Brew.
Morning Brew, Sam?
Morning Brew. There's a Morning Brew picked up my screenshot essay as one of their points of the day. No, it was interesting. I wrote a thing about how Europe just probably can't have nice things anymore if they're going to keep making up these ridiculous internet laws, because they've had the benefit for the last many years of effectively riding on American internet services of a zero marginal cost. We're sure, they have demonstrably worse stuff in every way, and their economy is terrible broadly in the EU, except they've had on par with American services, because once you build them in the US, you might as well put them in Europe. But if they keep being dicks, right, then they're just going to stop having nice things there. And interestingly, this was a good Twitter fodder because people had a lot they could argue about on this. So it went very viral.
If you have a Starlink dish in Europe, do you still have to follow the European terrestrial internet rules?
Well, it's interesting. Same thing with a VPN. It's the question is who knows you're in Europe, right? It's and what's the liability around being in Europe, and whose problem is it if you're in Europe but it's hard to know you're in Europe, right? And there's a whole bunch of. It's the same thing with China, though, right? The Chinese internet is everyone's well, there are laws locally, but then you can obviously obscure where you are. But then who's liable if you obscure where you are based on your citizenship? And there's a whole bunch of bullshit on this, right? About who. I mean, there are entire companies now that all they do is manage compliance policies for cookies. That's the entire business to try to deal with the fracturing internet. So it's a whole lot of waste is what it comes down to. But I think the most recent internet thing with Europe is people want a vacation there. But this idea that, this meta ruling they're trying to pull off, where they're you can't target ads, you can't offer different services, and you also can't charge us. It's well, what would you like us to do?
You basically you cannot build a business.
Then you just can't have nice things, right? It's the same thing with these AI
You literally
policies.
can't have anything. You can't have any internet, anything.
It's good luck using Blue Sky, right? If that's how you feel at some level, right? It's
yeah.
But even Blue Sky has to have servers somewhere, right? And so what do you do?
I actually think this goes back to an old Dave Sam riff, which I still firmly believe, right? Which is, there's so much crap going on. It's never going to happen for a bunch of reasons. But the future really should be a U.S. digital citizenship as a path to full citizenship.
We should do a whole episode on this.
It's just right. And if you told me that we basically, because as the world keeps getting weirder and citizenship's getting weirder and all these stupid rules, you said, look, you want to apply to be an American citizen, there's some sort of lightweight citizenship option where you get a private key, right? And you're an American citizen, you can use some American banking services, you do some KYC, we monitor the shit out of your communications. And after a certain number of years of participation in the US digital economy, you have the right to become a full American citizen, right? That's clearly the right way to go. And the way you get around this is you get a bunch of Europeans look, you live in France, fine, whatever. If you want American digital citizenship so you can use good stuff, apply here, right? And be a dual citizen and then if you're really good, come hang out in the country, right? We need more people.
So what do you think the chances of this actually happening are?
Zero chance. Yeah. Zero chance.
Yeah. It's also interesting that there are several European countries adopting the Portugal policy of this. I noticed over the last 6 months, or maybe even the last 3 months, it's Italy's doing some version of this now. Japan is also getting into this. It was the easiest to get into Portugal for the last 5 to 10 years, and nobody else seemed to be adopting stances like this, but it seems to be spreading.
Yeah, I just think like a big picture, there's something going on where like the world is obviously refactionalizing, which I understand. They're sovereign nations. They can make their choices. Like the internet, we all grew up in an era of like extreme globalization and this like utopian view that like we would have a truly globalized labor force and blah, blah, blah. And I think we're just in like the reversal of that. And if you told me it's going to be more US centric, we have a great economy, we need way more people. So we just need to figure out how to get way more people, right, to keep growing. And like, we're like, fine, we're going to have our own shit. And like, that sucks. Eventually we'll get back to another globalization period, hopefully in history. But for the next 20 to 30 years of our career, I just expect it to be highly factionalized. And I think that really puts extra pressure on the US needing to grow its population.
I also think that the digital citizenship idea is one of the best ways to create high skill immigration pathways that are obviously something that we need to fix this next time around. And, you know, Sam, like you said, there's like monitoring communications and things like this, making sure you're a trustworthy person, but also giving people the opportunity to show their skills from afar and prove that they can, you know, do incredible digital work and become part of the greater terrestrial US economy also seems to be something that we've just broadly failed at.
Yeah. Which does go back to this thing, which I think is the vibe in Silicon Valley. Even I feel this, which is like Donald Trump sucks, right? However, like, so does Biden now, apparently. And there's lying everywhere. And the reality is there's some things Trump says in his manic wanderings which aren't wrong. Like this, you know, he's obviously made, you know, I think some very public comments about, you know, if you have a college degree, you should get a green card. Now, here's the reality. He doesn't want that, especially given what's going on with DEI, right, on college campuses. The second you're like your random ass DEI degree, right, like gets you a green card, like we're going to be in a world of trouble, right? But I think like directionally,
yeah, put that aside. Directionally, it is definitely the right direction.
Yeah, and so I don't know. I'm like, who knows? I'm like, I think like everyone, I'm super depressed about the state of American politics. I think it's just awful. But in the glass half full view, if you get the crazy man back, maybe you do unlock, you know, a few of these things, which would be good in the
Sam,
craziness.
If Trump wins and then he taps you to come lead some
he
sort
definitely
of technology
won't.
department, would you go do it? Would you go?
No.
Would you go work
Good
under
question.
the Trump administration?
I don't think I'd work under any administration. I think that like politics and those types of structures in my skill set probably are like oil and water. Like, I just don't see myself being effective. I don't think I'm even effective in like corporate bureaucracies from my experience.
Sam, do you like working in large groups of people?
No. Like, do I like building consensus? It's like abso-fucking-lutely not, right? And so for me, I think
Sam's like, this is the largest team I'm willing to work on, you guys.
And even this is a challenge for me. I mean, I'd be better. I think I'm much more effective throwing capital and ideas over the transom and running around doing random shit than I am trying to actually move balls forward in bureaucracies. So I wouldn't do it, but not because I don't think there's, I just don't think it's like my skill set. And it's not one, I know some people in our friend group who it wasn't their skill set when they were younger and they chose to very intentionally develop it as a skill set. And I respect them for that. I have decided to go in the other direction, which is to embrace it not being my skill set.
Okay, well, maybe you could be a special advisor.
Know thyself.
Yeah. That's good. That's good awareness.
What summer trends do you see out there? Like what's top of mind and how are your tech colleagues spending their time?
I mean, there's been a lot more interest, I would say, in deep tech and robotics around us lately. We're actually going to go over to Japan in a couple months and meet with a bunch of the leading people in those categories.
Japan,
and then I just saw, in Tokyo and like throughout.
They've been deep robots forever because they ran out of people.
Right. Good point.
They're also really good at robots.
They have to be.
Yeah.
They invented being good at robots.
Again, they just like, it was like a national mandate. It's like they ran out of humans. So like, we better get good at robots.
But did you guys see the demo of Elon's new, the Optimus humanoid robot that as part of Tesla that he believes is going to take Tesla to a $25 trillion stock?
I saw it in person last week.
I don't believe in that valuation, but I will say one of the hardest things that
wouldn't pass due diligence.
In all of my learning about robotics and these humanoid robots, it's really difficult to teach a humanoid robot to fold a shirt And so that was what they used in this demo video. And the robot did it pretty well. I was very impressed.
So you got to be careful with these down. So we know people, I mean, there are entire companies that are literally just having a bunch of humans in a warehouse folding sheets over and over and over to try to teach robots how to fold sheets. Like that's a thing that's happening in the US too. Here's the problem. If you talk to the robot people, the demo videos are really cool, but like it's like the 1 in 100 case, right? Is the point. It's like when you go, like they don't actually like it's just like any demo video. You can make it look sweet, but none of these robots actually consistently work yet. They're just like snapping like the one, try it 100 times, get it right once type thing. Doesn't mean eventually you don't get there, but like you got to be default very skeptical of any highlight reel of a robot, just as you would of like a Red Bull athlete.
That's fine, but I would argue that
no, Tesla's in a great position though.
Wait, what? Just to push you, Jess, why do you think Tesla's in a great position?
So, I mean, maybe you skipped the talk at the last conference on this, but so the biggest problem, yes, very important to note Sam's attendance at said event.
No, only because I want to make sure that people know that I actually go to the session so I don't get kicked out.
Well, that's what I said, why I'd like to note your attendance. If we were on the same page, I got you. But the biggest barrier is training data to robotics, according to the experts. I didn't know this. And with its vehicles, Tesla has actually amassed in the minds of someone who had no affiliation with Tesla and actually was trying to compete with them, kind of like the world's most valuable robotics training data set. So,
but how? I missed the how on that because like
it's simple.
It's like spatial computing.
Yeah, the manufacturing process is entirely robotic.
Yeah, but their manufacturing process sucks. Like that's one of the things that people like get wrong about Tesla. Is like Toyota's.
I'm sorry, Sam. Just to push you, their manufacturing process does not suck. They're putting out more cars. Like they put out more.
Toyota's way, way, way better at manufacturing.
They're putting out more Cybertrucks per month right now than the entire Rivian production line. Just to put it in context.
Okay, we can't compare to Rivian.
It's like comparing them to a monkey with a wrench. Like you compare them to Toyota, right? And like you look at the real manufacturing companies, and like the whole story of Tesla is they like to pretend like they have this incredibly dialed manufacturing, but they're actually incredibly inefficient manufacturer compared to the actual automakers who care about margin and are really good at this stuff.
And they would probably say it's not apples to apples because they're building computers or something else, right? We don't need to litigate our respective views on Tesla at this moment. But
I just I think there's like Tesla's an incredible marketing company, and like they're so good at marketing and narrative telling, narrative stories. That like there is this thing out there being like they're really good at manufacturing, and it's just like from everything I've heard from people who really study this, like just not true. They're actually very bad at manufacturing compared to real automakers, right? They're very good at it compared to other startups. Sure, they're much bigger than other startups.
But also, I just think, I imagine from their factories, I imagine from their vehicles and the cameras that use.
But like what? They're not folding sheets while you're driving. Like this is the thing, is like what the data sets are. It's like, I don't understand why Tesla having like, even if they had cameras in the car, like, your hand positions, like what data do they think they're getting from driving around that's
it's a good
relevant
question.
To like general robots?
Perhaps we should have asked the person making this claim, but
I think the thing here is that they're doing R&D on robotics, right? Like I think that's the thing that you have to kind of separate here. It's a subtle point, but not every car company, not every manufacturing company does their own R&D. Most people buy 6-axis gimbal arms off the shelf. They don't do basically from the bottom up robotics R&D. And so I think that's the thing you have to give Tesla some credit for.
Well, but just to push you, then like what it is really is they have brand, they have capital, like there are things they have to put into that, but they're not fundamentally advantaged by the fact that they're in the auto business.
I'm just thinking about this. I think it's more than that. And this is luckily I have some journalists who can look into this because I think it is a great question. And the impression I got from the talk, which again was not from a Tesla booster, was that they do just have an outsized capacity, whether that's from existing lines of business or R&D or people they've attracted. I'm not sure.
Well, look, I just don't think it's that different. I mean, it could be, you could make the analogy, which I would buy, that it's very similar to like Meta and Oculus, right? It's like Meta has no fundamental advantage, right? Or at least hasn't over the last decade in VR. They just decided to pour a shit ton of money and have the longevity to do it over a long enough period of time that they built a competency on it. If you said, hey, Tesla has an advantage because they have a lot of capital, they can take a long view, and Elon's a great leader and can attract talent, that I buy. Like, and I agree with that. I think that's like if he wants to go deep on this and give the markets will give him the latitude to, then sure. But it's not like because they have cars and they have some advantage in general robotics. Like, I just don't understand how that connects at all.
No, I think these aren't the same. I think that Oculus and Meta is not, it's apples to oranges, because they do have a structural advantage. The business of Tesla is very simple at the end of the day. You have to put a bunch of raw materials in a factory, and out the other end, you have to produce a car. And if you do a better job at that with robotics, you increase your margins, you increase the number of units you can put out the door. It's very much endemic to the business that you're running. Whereas like the Oculus business was completely tangential to Meta's overall business. You could make like a somewhat long-term strategic point that like maybe people are going to strap computers to their faces 10 years down the line, and so like owning that surface was like a very important surface to own.
You can make the argument you can distribute it at least, right? It's the same buyers.
Yeah, but you don't have a structural advantage on the production side. In fact, I would argue that outside of the incredible server and compute work that Facebook has done to develop their business, developing Oculus was like a total orthogonal thing to what they do every single day, which is develop ad-based social networks.
I agree. It was like a second thing to jump to. I think the argument that it's the same is like, look, Tesla needs a story past cars because the car thing is too competitive. The EV thing isn't playing out the way people want it to, and it's just too competitive. I mean, Toyota's really good at making cars, right? Like, and they're actually way better at making cars than Tesla, right? And they're bigger. And so to me, the similar story is like Elon needs another hill to jump on to keep a meme stock going. Robots are fine. Sure, you can make some arguments. It makes the manufacturer a little more efficient to justify the spend. But like when you get down to like what is their fundamental advantage in robots, I would love some reporting on it because it doesn't make intuitive sense to me that they have any. Right.
Well, let's like then take this up a cultural level then, which is to ask the question, why is Apple starting to talk about robots? I mean, Amazon was doing a little bit of like consumer robot stuff over the last few years. Like there does seem to be...
They tried to buy iRobot.
Yeah. And
Toyota used to be the robot people. Remember when they like put out their weird ass robots?
No, I know that. But I guess I'm pushing more towards there's something going on right now where robots are starting to move into the consumer domain in a more visible fashion than they have ever. And what is it about technology right now that is causing that movement, I guess is the question. Like, is it just the price of a 6-axis gimbal arm is getting low enough that you can put it in a cafe X in an airport and you can put machine learning on it and it can make coffee more efficiently than a human? Or is it something else?
I think it's two things. I think one, people really need a new narrative for growing the economy, right? And people are like, what are we going to use AI for? Where's the payoff? Robots have been a story for a long time. Second is like, I just don't think humans want to do very much work anymore. Right. And like, I think humans are getting really expensive, right? Like, if you think about it, like we're having fewer humans because not enough people are being born, especially in developed economies. There's refactionalization where globalization is out of vogue. So you can't just go to like low labor cost markets and get cheap people to do shit, right?
Fair point.
We want to like re-onshore a bunch of stuff because we're terrified from a national security perspective. And like Americans don't want to do these jobs. So people are like, fuck, let's build some robots, right? Because like that's the ultimate dream, is that I get to work completely alone and don't have to talk to any humans and can just command an army of robots because I don't want to talk to people.
Yeah, we had a big story about Apple setting new automation goals in its supply chain that were like incredibly aggressive.
I just think that's like it's a security thing. It's a access to labor thing. Like we just, there's a bunch of reasons why, like obviously strategically getting this right is super valuable right now. And very much like AI, it's like, I would argue that if you're an Apple investor, right, which I think does drive a lot of how they think about this stuff, it's like, what are the two things that are free to invest in? It's probably AI and robots. It's AI because it's such a Hail Mary that like you can burn $50 billion, $100 billion, and the coin toss of whether it pays off or not is so favorable if the narrative plays out that people will spot you that. They'll actually probably pay you to invest in AI from a stock price perspective. And I think the same thing is true with if you're an Apple investor, you're like, what are you worried about? You're worried about supply chain. You're worried about cost of labor. You're worried about partners. So if Apple's like, hey, we're going to plow $100 billion into robots, you're like, thank God. Like, I'm happy to pay that tax for the possibility of that they're taking this risk seriously. And that's why. And that doesn't mean there isn't stuff there, but it's like, I think that's why a lot of this is happening now in a lot of places. And then the Elon thing, I think, is a little bit of, it's all that plus a special case, which is like, he needs a thing which isn't an incredibly competitive market to support the type of premium his stock is getting marked at, right? Like, so robots.
It's not hard to figure out why robots are capturing the minds of the technorati. I mean, for all the reasons you said. Dave, I think that you nailed it with the first thing. I think the cost of components coming down is actually a big piece of why you're seeing like more investor interest in at least those new theses about it. But yeah, whether it amounts to anything. Also, if you go back to training data, I mean, where this connects to the broader AI landscape, of course, is like LLMs are very limited in what they can do. They're also very powerful, but they're, not a panacea of every kind of intelligence or capability. And so you're definitely seeing talk of different types of research in and around AI, and using AI to help build these data sets for training the robots seems to be an area of great import. So we're also seeing AI spillover.
100%. Yeah, 100%. I also think the reality is like, you think about it, it's like the LLM thing, attention is all you need type mentality says, fuck it, let's just go amass as much data without real thought as possible because it will pay off, right? Whereas historically you'd be like, okay, like, how valuable is sheet folding, right? Like, or whatever. You'd be like, that actually makes it harder to invest in. Whereas if we're in a mentality of like, just amass data, like full stop, it doesn't fucking matter because we'll be able to get signal out of it, then like, that's just like makes it a lot easier to justify spending shit tons of money on just data, right?
Totally.
Yeah. Well, maybe guys, because we have to wrap soon, I know we like the what's in your chat GPT segment. We used it for Vinod. I don't think we used it for Elon. But I have two relevant examples for this week. So our middle son was excluded from a certain play that was being concocted and instantly wanted to create his own and asked me to create a 4th of July play about George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. Great use of ChatGPT. So for any of you who need a last minute play, you can say, the first one was too long. I'm like, make it half the length. I cannot sustain this level of acting. Absolutely great for that. Solved a kid's social crisis with ease. Second use, we're about to announce our first speakers for our women's conference, WTF, and I have a spreadsheet of all our past speakers. And I wanted to turn it into a bulleted document, not a spreadsheet. Would have taken a lot of time before. Great use of ChatGPT.
These are good ones.
But I didn't actually get a bulleted document. I got a numbered document. I asked it to turn it into bullets. Totally broke down. Couldn't do it. Gave me one of the about 200, 300 speakers in a bullet.
I think you should have used Gemini.
I said, please take the whole list, numbers 1 through whatever.
Gemini is better at formatting.
That's a good tip because...
You also just should have told it that you would kill it if you didn't do it properly. It probably would have done it properly.
I don't want to do these things. I also assume someone's looking at every query I do. So I've just got to be very careful. But I'm like...
Like, if you don't bullet this list, I will kill you.
How many times have you threatened to kill your AI, Sam?
It's the only way to get it to do anything.
Is it embedded in the code for your new product, Sam?
Yeah, absolutely. In my new product, it's like summarize this, which is hearsay.email. Going very well, by the way. Lots of signups. I take all the emails that I get and I tell ChatGPT to summarize them and do a meta summary of the summaries and send it out to anyone who wants it. It's terrible. It's just an art project, but it does actually work quite well. But I'm like, ChatGPT, summarize Morning Brews news, brother. And if it's not good, I'll kill you.
Okay. I want to put a pin in this because I would like to start next week by talking about how I live with the person who's trying to kill the news industry from under my nose.
I'm in art project looking at what's going to happen.
Let's do it. That sounds like a fun topic, Jess. I just want a whole segment about how does Jess live with Sam every day. Yeah.
Teach us all how to live with Sam, Jess.
But guy, this is a true story. I was like, what did you do today? He's like, well, I built something that automatically summarizes every newsletter on the planet so you don't have to subscribe to any media outlet. And I'm like,
you're like, wait, we put out how many newsletters a day?
Jess, if you haven't figured this, I am the biggest supporter. I am your red team. My job is to take stuff and red team it. This is how it's going to work. And the good news is I think you're fine because, you're high priced and paid. I think you might have to stop putting as much content in email and newsletter bodies and force people to log in more.
People don't subscribe to newsletters that summarize points. They want the voice. They want the perspective. They want Matt Levine. They want Kaya Yuriev. They want,
I don't know. The number of people that have signed up for this. And then on the flip side, the number of journalists and people who write newsletters weirdly message me asking to be included in this really gives me some serious pause.
Oh my God. Okay, guys.
Either that or you're just running into creator economy hustle culture.
Yeah. Well, it's been an amazing episode, guys, from Padel to,
Yeah, I look forward to the title on this one.
Ooh, I'm also very excited. Zach Bryan's new album comes out tonight.
Who is Zach Bryan?
And Lainey Wilson has new songs this week.
The great American bar scene.
I love Lainey Wilson as a good Jackson Holian.
Sam, I'll send you some good new music.
I love new music. I'm still just listening to Imagine Dragons on repeat.
Well, I hope you guys have a great 4th. Happy birthday, America. Wish me luck in my play. And yes, a big thank you to everyone who listens. I hope you guys have some fun this long weekend. Gear up.
Happy 4th of July.
For the rest of the summer.
Celebrate America.
Go America. We got this.
Go America.
Yeah, we're all over it.
America's going to figure itself out, everyone.
I did see a great meme in closing about America where it was just like, look, America, rather than jumping into a new relationship, maybe it just needs to be single for a little while.
Fair. Put Sam in charge and see what happens.
Fair enough.
Okay, and in that note, to all our listeners, viewers, back channelers, sharers, thank you guys. We love this community and all the feedback, and we'll see you here next week for another episode. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this show, please leave us a virtual high five by rating it and reviewing it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Find more information about each episode in the show notes and follow us on social media by searching for @MoreOrLess, @DaveMorin, @Lesson, @JLesson, and as for me, I'm @Brit. See you guys next time.